Hello everyone and welcome to this webinar about the connectors of CMDBuild and CMDBuild Ready to Use. I hope you can all hear me well. If not, we'll just write in the chat box right below the slides. You'll find a chat box. You can write any technical issue you have, and we'll try to help you out. But it should be fine. We checked the mic just before starting, so it should all be good. All right, well, yeah, it seems everything is good. So hello again, I'm Francesco from Tecnoteca, and I will be guiding you through a quick overview of the connectors that we have developed, the ones that we are developing, the ones that are standard, so that you can find in our as a standard feature in our tools. CMDBuild or CMDBuild Ready to Use. Some others which are not standard, but we developed, we call them custom connectors. We developed especially for a specific customer, and this was, of course, possible through the high degree of customizability that both our tools have, CMDBuild and CMDBuild Ready to Use. So let's start. Today we're mainly speaking about CMDBuild and CMDBuild Ready to Use, and not our third tool, which is OpenMaint. As you certainly know, CMDBuild is just a generic asset management tool. It's a CMDB and can be configured and customized to manage any kind of asset, going from IT assets to any other assets. Really, you can name any asset you need to manage, and most likely CMDBuild will be able to do it. This is possible thanks to the very high degree of customizability that I just told you about. So for this reason, we have some customers using CMDBuild for managing photovoltaic panels, so the maintenance of photovoltaic panels, or for managing specific for the maintenance of a specific engine for small aircraft. Well, a lot of different maintenance needs, and all these needs are well answered by CMDBuild. Of course, at first CMDBuild started as an IT asset management tool. So for this reason, we gathered a lot of experience. More than 10-15 years actually experience on the IT management tool, and so we thought about giving the customers and giving all the users with an open source AGPL license, a tool that was able to be used immediately after download, so without having to input any database structure, any workflow, any report, any dashboard, or even any connector. And this is CMDBuild Ready to Use. CMDBuild Ready to Use is a specific IT asset management tool, ITIL compliant, which we released around, was probably 2-3 years ago, and that was really the result of all the experience we acquired in the previous 15-20 years of using the tool of CMDBuild. On both tools, you can of course use the connectors. You can create your own, or you can ask us to create any of the ones that you need. Well, connecting a system to CMDBuild and CMDBuild to this system is extremely important. For CMDBuild Ready to Use, as I told you, there's already a pre-configured database structure, so it's not an empty blackboard just like CMDBuild where you can write anything on it. And so if you're starting from a quite classic IT configurations in your company, it might definitely be worth starting with the CMDBuild Ready to Use. If not, if you have very specific management needs, then starting from an empty blackboard where you can write everything on it, then so CMDBuild is the right choice. So it wouldn't really make sense to provide standard connectors with the CMDBuild as there is no verticalization in CMDBuild, but just in CMDBuild Ready2Use. So this is the reason why you won't be able to download connectors for CMDBuild. As I just told you, CMDBuild is empty, so it wouldn't be possible to do the matching between the elements that need to be synchronized in CMDBuild and in the other tool, as there are no elements yet in CMDBuild. Of course, just as it happens in CMDBuild Ready2Use, you can create your own connector, or you can get us to do the job for you, and connect any system that you need to connect with CMDBuild. In CMDB Ready2Use, instead, you find already some connectors available. They're just in the box of CMDBuild Ready2Use when you download it, and that we are going to talk about today. Managing IT services by large or medium-sized company is extremely important, of course, and connecting systems with the CMDB is just essential as having one CMDB. This, of course, there's a lot of systems involved in the IT asset management, and there's some specific information systems that manage specific information which must all work together. CMDBuild, acting as a central point of all these systems, is quite a philosophy that we try to think about when we develop our connector. So the configurations of connectors through external systems becomes extremely important when you need to synchronize the CMDBuild. So which is your central CMDB systems with the data that are mainly managed through other masters applications. So, for example, the ones for inventory, having the one that collects the information on all your IT structures. So the systems for the automatic inventory, as I was just saying, OCS Inventory is just an example, and is just one of the tools that is automatically connected to CMDBuild through our standard connectors. Common need is also to have a control systems that are synchronized with CMDBuild. So if you need to extract information, for example, about the current configuration of the IT infrastructure and all, and if you also need to have for example, a report showing you the differences, the discrepancies, or the new editing or changing in the control systems. Also, you may want to connect the monitoring systems with your CMDBuild. So thanks to this, the information going from the monitoring system through CMDBuild can acquire during the transition into CMDBuild a lot more information, which a monitoring system does not have. Very often, the monitoring systems can only give a generic alarm information, and if this information goes through CMDBuild, could be enriched by all the information that are inside the CMDBuild. So, for example, the service level agreement, or the position or of the asset that is that has some problem, that has set the alarm, or any other information, the owner, or the last maintenance that has been performed, or if the asset is crucial and needs to be taken care of, or it can just wait for some days before actually doing responding to this alarm, or other systems that could be applications that could be synchronized with CMDBuild through the connectors could be the LDAP directory for the Active Directory, for example, talking about a common tool which we develop a standard connector for. the HR systems, the ERP systems to receive administration status, so such as information on the supplier or on the sources, for example. So going on with the next slide. Today, well, we were just after this very quick overview of CMDBuild and CMDBuild Ready to Use and the importance of connecting our tools with your own external systems, because of course CMDBuild cannot replace all the tools out there, and very often the tools and systems that you may have you are very familiar with, and you are not planning to change them. If you got, for example, it does happen that some of the customers tell us that they have their own ticketing system, and the ticketing system feature is absolutely available in CMDBuild Ready to Use. We do suggest to use it. However, we also understand the reluctancy of these customers to use to stop using, also maybe because they have already contracts signed and everything. So they don't want to stop using their ticketing system. So in this case, the solution is just to connect the ticketing system with the CMDBuild, creating a custom connector and letting the user use both tools at the same time. So this happens quite often, but also it does happen that after a while, then our users are happy with CMDBuild and they just take the whole package and start even using, for example, again, the ticketing system. So today we're just going to talk about the CMDBuild connectors for having the full interoperability between your CMDB and all the other systems that that contain information that could be edited, could be updated on CMDBuild. So about the general characteristics of a connector, about the available connecting solutions in CMDBuild. So the wizard connector and the advanced connector, which is something which is probably the most important element of the webinar today. And I'm just going to describe you a little bit about the connectors that are already implemented, that are standard, and I also will bring you some good examples of custom connectors that we develop. Of course, we developed a lot of connectors for specific custom needs, and we just gathered today a few just to give you an overall idea of what it could be your solution to your need. Going on with the next slide, the batch synchronizing connector is one of the two general element for the description of a connector. The first one is the batch synchronizing connector. The second one is the real-time connector. So the batch synchronizing connector can contact the system of interest, which could be an automatic inventory tool, for example, such as OCS Inventory again, an LDAP directory for Active Directory, and this can happen through one of the possible communication channels, which could be SOAP, SOAP REST, it could be a web service. So it could also be a direct access to the database. It could be any other APIs. It could be CSV files. It could be structured emails. So after the contact, there is access to the specific information that needs to be synchronized or managed. For example, the list of assets, list of people, of the staff, which is extracted, of course, could be extracted by a specific SQL query, or again a SOAP call or REST call or APIs. And then the tool will apply the appropriate criteria of mapping. So it will do a mapping between the source information on one side and the corresponding information in CMDBuild. So this is what we call a batch synchronizing connector. Of course, it could be scheduled to work to run how often you want, but usually this is not it's not worth to let it make it run in real time. So every 30 seconds, for example, or even less. But usually this is something that happens during the nighttime, and is typical. For example, the OCS inventory or the connector with Active Directory, which runs every night. But of course, these can be easily scheduled. For example, again, for the Active Directory connector, wouldn't really make sense to make it run every 30 seconds, as there is not really there's not really a lot of new information going on every 30 seconds, but just probably day by day or even week by week. So going on and talking a little bit about a real-time connector. This is what we call those connectors that work, run continuously all day long. And of course, these are the execute operations. So for example, they can start a workflow in CMDBuild when a external event happens. This external event could be an alarm to a server that is down, or it could be any other external event, a phone call coming in and activating the workflow for the help desk, for the incident maintenance, the user request. Any could open a ticket. Could be really could trigger any workflow. Of course, this for working must run very often, continuously. So it execute operations again in real time. And this is what I was just saying before, that when you have an alarm, and very often your tool does not tell you a lot of information about this alarm. This information goes through CMDBuild to the connector, which adds all the relevant information to this alarm, and then sends out a notification, for example, through an email. I'm just describing a connector we're going to talk about later, but just to give you an idea what we mean by a real-time connector. You do have available two solutions in CMDBuild. We once had the third one, but it was not very. We skipped it was some years ago, so we didn't find it very useful, so we abandoned it. And there's the two ones are the Wizard connector and the Advanced connector. Of course, the Advanced connectors is way more powerful than the Wizard connector, but it needs a little bit of more technical elements. So going on, the Wizard connector, it is extremely useful when you have a very simple case of data synchronization. So when your mapping rules do not need a specific application logic, then the Wizard connector is extremely easy to configure and can really create your workflow in very few steps. It is absolutely fully configurable from the UI. It can be used immediately after installation. It is a very simple task to do. But of course, on the con side, it cannot handle complicated mapping rules. Only is very simple mapping rules. For example, when the destination element, and the origin elements are very similar in terms of, for example, hierarchy or names, or are very similar. So in this case, the Wizard connectors can come in handy. Of course, it can only access external data sources like relational databases. It cannot work with other external data sources, and it is not set to automatically start an authorization processes. So, for example, sending out a report to the authorization manager, to the change manager, which can approve or reject the editing that has been just set by the connector. The Advanced connector is that, of course, I should say that, to be very honest, the Wizard connector, it is very simple to use, but we don't use it very often. It just happens in probably around 5 to 8% of our customers are able to use their the wizard connector. The advanced connector instead is way more complete and give you a bigger world of opportunities in terms of connecting your system to CMDBuild. It is based on a configurable framework. It is written in Java, and the scripting is Groovy. And it can also communicate, not as the wizard connector would do, with the external systems, for example, using web services given by the destination tools, or through direct access to the database, or CSV files, or email incoming, or yeah, this SOAP REST web service calls, and gives you the ability to work with basically any external application. So it's very, very uncommon that we are not able to create a connector with your tool when it has a web services or API available. Also, it can read specific elements in incoming emails, and from that on can start a workflow, and then can trigger a change, for example, a change management workflow. It is also through the advanced connector possible of a contextual synchronization of even complex data structure. This was not possible at all with the wizard connector, which was only available for very, very simple, like mapping of simple data elements. It works very good with a lot of large amounts of data. It is not scary at all to deal with the big data, and it can offer, again, unlimited customization. It could be really set to connect any external tool with CMDBuild through a even standard programming language. On the con side, well, to be honest, you must know a little. You must have a little of programming skills in Java and the Groovy scripting in order to be absolutely independent and create your own. Of course, if you do not have these skills or do not have the time to develop your own, sometimes it is way more convenient just to give us the task to do it than starting to do it on your own, as this is a very, very common activity that we do, developing connector. I would say that the biggest majority of our users, probably this is the most common task that we deliver to our users, is to create a specific connector. So this schema here represents the advanced connectors. So you see on the left the CMDBuild architecture, on the center in the red box the CMDBuild advanced connector, and on the right part of the screen you see the external system. Could be really, again, any external system that you want to connect to the advanced connector. So the CMDBuild architecture, we will call it like this in this slide, communicates with the CMDBuild advanced connector through a web service, SOAP or REST, which then talks with the external system either through a SOAP call from web service and then to the application directly to the relational database, to an SQL, which must be SQL, or through a CSV file, or through LDAP, even again through emails, which have specific elements in the body, or in the object, or in the sender, or whatever. Of course, SOAP is a standard-based web services access protocol, which was developed actually by Microsoft, and it's been around already a while. It's been around. REST is instead a bit newcomer to the block. It is more recent than a SOAP, and it does provide a well, like quite a simple method of accessing web services, more than REST probably. But again, it depends. Some tools it is better to connect them to the SOAP web services or REST web services. Again, you shall know a little bit of Groovy scripts in order to do some custom logics. But if you do not know, well, just we're right here for helping you out. So talking now about the already implemented connectors, there's here, well, I just put a list of them, and I also put if it is a standard in CMDBuild Ready2Use, or if it is custom. Well, if I didn't write anything, it's because it was a custom, something we did specific for a customer. And then I also put something we are currently working on, the future connectors that we're working on and will be released very soon. Something I forgot to say, I usually say at the beginning of the webinar. This time I just forgot. If you got any questions, just feel free to write them down in the chat box. As meanwhile that I speak, I will get to them at the very end of the webinar and then try to answer them all. So don't wait till the end of the webinar to ask your questions, but just feel free to do it even right now if you got something that it's not clear, or if you want to dig more into something that I said, or for whatever feedback you want to give us. Well, just feel free to use the chat box instead, and I will get to them at the very end of the webinar. So the connectors that are already implemented, that comes as standard features in CMDBuild Ready2Use, are the one with Active Directory, with OCS Inventory, with vCenter, with LLDP, and the ones that we're going to talk about today are the one that we created for a customer who needed to connect Mages with CMDBuild, or also Microsoft Azure, Oracle VM, SAP Solution Manager, and a telephone switchboard needed to connect it to CMDBuild. Then we're just going to talk a little bit about Zabbix and see what we're working on right now. So starting with the Active Directory connector, here you have the schema of how the connector works. Sometimes, well, I should say very often, it is very useful to have all the staff, so all the elements of the staff, the human resources, stored in your CMDBuild. This could be very useful when you have to assign a computer or a specific IT asset to a person, or rooms to their occupants, or activities of assistance to applicants, things like that. So in this case, it is very useful to import from Active Directory through the connectors that you find as a standard feature in CMDBuild Ready2Use into your CMDBuild. So the synchronization works on the data between the master archive and, of course, CMDBuild. The master archive is the one inside the Active Directory, and of course CMDBuild. If the logic, in this case, if the logic of the mapping is quite simple, the synchronization can also be achieved through the Wizard connector. We develop also CMDBuild Ready2Use, keeping in mind that a lot of our customers, maybe all of the customers, the majority of the customers, needed to also manage their staff, the human resources inside the CMDBuild. So we try to follow also the Active Directory elements to when it came to structure the database elements. You could also, if the logic is not this simple and you cannot use the Wizard connector, you can also have the advanced connector, providing you a kind of like a hybrid solution. So the main data in this case is processed by the Active Directory, and of course, and synchronized in CMDBuild. And some other specific technical information, such as the emails addresses, for example, are treated as master in CMDBuild and updated on Active Directory. So the connector can work on both sides, updating on one side the CMDB, and on the other is CDs. The master is CMDBuild that give the information to Active Directory. Of course, the Active Directory connector can also be the trigger for a change management workflow, for example. We do have one customer that is using this connector to and have a very big turnover. So as soon as the new employee come, the connector, this is updated in our Active Directory. The connector notices this change and automatically updates in CMDBuild, and as well create a new change management workflow, which, for example, could assign a new PC or automatically assign all the telephone number or an email address or whatever your company does whenever a new person comes in and in the stuff, or it could be creating an account or delete it when someone goes out. Could be, of course, in both ways. So this was the Active Directory connector. This is just a report that is automatically generated. All of our connectors are create a report when they find a discrepancy between the master data and the CMDBuild in this case. So here you have the list of the created employees, list of the modified employees, and the list of the deleted employees. This is with a report generated by the connector, and that groups the employee based on the ones that you created, edited, or of course, or deleted. You also, this report can, if you click on the link that you have in the report, which can be downloaded as a CSV file, as a PDF file from the user interface of CMDBuild. You can click on the link and you can access directly to that employee's file. So this was just a report. Of course, the report is not can be customized in terms of colors, in terms of elements to be inserted. It could be quite an easy task also to do so. So it is something that usually our customers can do by themselves to edit or create or change the reports that are generated. Talking now about OCS Inventory connector. OCS Inventory, as you may know, provides all the data that is related to all the informatic, to the computers, to the PCs that are present in your company, and the softwares installed on them. There's a discovery agent inside the PCs, and this agent is connected to through OCS Inventory through to the CMDBuild. Of course, in this case, a report is generated as well and goes to the change manager. And this is such a connector that runs daily, so it creates a daily report. So it's not worth to make it run in real time, but just probably daily is enough. Going on, the next slide shows the just an example of how you can map the data. So how we can do the mapping of the data between the OCS Inventory and CMDBuild. Some of the classes are perfectly synchronized through this connector. And these are the desktop computers, so with their net interfaces and and all the softwares that are installed on those machines. So you can automatically update the computers, for example, the computer super class, the desktop computers, laptops, and the software class. These all automatically. Also, since OCS Inventory provides a huge amount of data, maybe very often related to software that we may not need to know every time, there's a software, there's a kind of what we call software whitelist, so where we can select only the software that we need to import through the connector. Again, OCS Inventory standard connector. Also, this is a screenshot I took just before the webinar. I was talking also about OCS Inventory. That going more deep into the catalog, white list of the software that you want to import with the OCS Inventory, is that quite easy. You can just give a value to a identifying pattern, so you can import only the softwares that are in the catalog. For example, whose names respects the one that you gave in this identifying pattern tree, but it is a standard feature you find in the user interface. This is the report instead that is created with the automatically, and that just shows you the changes that have been made to the new elements, the new IT assets that came into the system, or the new softwares that have been installed into the tools. And automatically they are automatically updated in CMDBuild. Going on, another standard element, another standard connector we developed was the one with the VMware vCenter. So VMware is one of the leading virtualization environments. vCenter instead is just the tool provided by VMware for the management of this infrastructure. So this connector gives you an up-to-date information about the inventory of the virtual servers that are used in the VMware infrastructure. This information could be about the RAM, about the CPU, about the operating system, the resources. It could be about the status of the server. It could be if it's working fine, if it's down, or any other custom information. That you may want to add this that you may need to know. So which could be again read by and transmitted from through the connector to CMDBuild. One other thing to say is that the automatic inventory tool, such as again the OCS inventory that we just saw some slides before, are able to detect some information, some technical information about, for example, the virtual servers, but such information often is not very complete as those that are provided by each individual virtualization system. So this again is a very common need for developing, for start using a connector that synchronize in CMDBuild all the virtual machines that are connected to vCenter, regardless to their status, if they're on, off, if they're working fine. So the configuration of these type of connectors that are able, of course, again, to communicate with external systems is done through the usage of APIs and through the advanced connector. So for in this case, for the VMware vCenter connector, we use the advanced connector, of course, not a wizard connector, and any custom changes that you would like to do must be done also through the advanced connector. So in this case, the data is read by the connector, of course, not through a LDAP protocol, but through a web service that is provided by VMware vCenter. So the connector just sends a query to the to the vCenter services, recovering all the information, re-elaborated and then provides the mapping and the synchronization with the CMDBuild data. Of course, again, a report is generated, and then the change manager might decide to approve the change or just reject it. This is an example of just a portion of a small subset of data that can be imported by vCenter. So in the class here examined in this case is the class which is just the main target of the connector, which is just the virtual servers, and in general also all the ones that are identified just through the host names. As I just said, the attributes can be imported. That can be imported are many: RAM, CPU, operating system, net interfaces, storage units, or execution classes of the virtual machines, or any other custom information you may want. Another standard connectors we have is the LLDP protocol. The one, sorry, that uses the LLDP protocol for the networking discovery that analyzes the network that supports a AT infrastructure, recovering all the information about the devices in these in the infrastructure. So the purpose of this connector is just to automatically, just as all the other connectors, is to automatically update information related to the network configuration and supply a change report to verify, just as the other connector, to verify the from the change manager for the verification from the change manager to the elements that have changed and to approve them. I see there are some questions going on, so that's very good. Feel very free to write them. I will get to them at the end of the webinar I just said. So this was the last standard connector that we are presenting today. The next one is the one that we created for Nages NetI grant work. This is something that we did because one of our customer needed to have more information about the alarms coming from Nages NetI. So the needed this information to go through CMDBuild to be enriched by the elements that are inside CMDBuild, again, such as the SLA, for example. And then in case of respecting some specific parameters, send out an email to the change manager, no matter if it was a weekend, at night time, or whatever, if the alarm was on a critical server. This actually it's happened like this. The customer was quite sick of having to be waking up not every night, but during the night, just for going and checking if what the alarm was. So he wanted to be just notified only when specific alarms on critical elements would set on. So it is just a connector that we created. So the typically alarm notification that is automatically sent by such tools is an email which contains very poor information. The one we created is definitely more valuable solution that gives an impact analysis and can start a workflow incident in case that this incident has some specific features that are preset, of course. And also could be this email that is sent to the change manager can be enriched by a report generated or any other customization dashboard or any other customization activity that the change manager may need. Okay, so going on with the next one is the one with Microsoft Azure that we developed. We actually also did some extension to the data model of CMDBuild READY2USE specifically to manage the configurations item in Microsoft
Azure, which is of course a cloud computing services of created by Microsoft, of course, for building, deploying, managing, and all the applications and services through a global network of Microsoft data centers. So the connector in this case uses the web service of which is provided by Azure in order to retrieve information and collect all the data and send them to CMDBuild. In this case, of course, we did use the advanced connector. Going on to the next slide, very similar to the VMware vCenter, which is a standard connector that you find in CMDBuild. Ready to use, the one with Oracle VM, very similar to the previous one. Through the web service, the connector consults Oracle virtual machine and imports the virtual machine into CMDBuild. The one that you find already available is the one with the VMware vCenter, but in case you're using Oracle VM, we already developed it for some customers, so it wouldn't be much of an effort to develop it for you as well. The other one is the one we developed for the solution manager of SAP, of course developed by SAP SE, which is an integrated end-to-end platform intended to assist users in adopting, for example, new developments or managing the application's lifecycle, or of course running SAP solutions. In this case, our connector just synchronized the SAP database. And this has been this connector has been creating through a custom SOAP module instead, of course, of the classic CSV files or emails or LDAP. This is a connector we built for one of our Italian customers, and that is it was a big work, but at the end of the day, it was very worth it. Also the works perfectly connecting these elements from the SAP, which is mostly adopted by a lot of companies and by CMDBuild. So we thought it would be definitely worth to start developing such tool, such connector, and given to this customer. Of course, this is not a standard connector, so it's just a custom made, specifically made. The next one is with the PBX, so a telephone switchboard. This is for another Italian customer, extremely important Italian customer, which also had spoke about during the CMDBuild Day, which we held on October the 4th, 2016. So if you want to have more information, just look for, just go and watch the CMDBuild Day interviews, where you will find also some more information about this. This was the Chamber of Deputies that asked us to develop such connector. This was because the majority of the calls to the help desk of the Chamber of Deputies would happen from telephone. So they needed a system to provide some automation to this process, and this has been done through a connector that open tickets automatically whenever a phone call comes in through the PBX, of course, for the service desk. So the system automatically sends out the call to the less busy person, so the one that received the call since longer. Then the request fulfillment process and the incident management start with very few customization needed. So the ticket is open with already the data from the caller, the date, the time when the call happened, and the one that also the help desk staff that is answered the phone and is dealing with the ticket. So it is possible through this connector to automatically fill out a lot of information, like the majority of the fields of the form are already pre-filled out, with obvious benefits coming from the the fact that the staff is, well, forced to deal with the ticket. The second benefit, of course, is the reduction or limitation or even elimination of any possible mistake in filling out the form. Of course, in case the ticket is not just a user request, which is the standard workflow that is set to be triggered, the help desk changes within CMDBuild the workflow into just an incident workflow. It is just not a user request. So this was the last example of the connectors that we have already developed. Both that are standard, so you can find them when you download CMDB Ready to Use, and the ones that are custom made, so specific for our customers. The one we're working on right now is the one with Zabbix. Zabbix, of course, is a monitoring solution for the network monitoring. We are working with an Italian company called Quadrata, which is a company we're working on to create a specific connector. Zabbix is just a tool that notices if, for instance, sorry, a website is down. In this case, we'll just send an email, and CMDBuild will collect this email and open a ticket. So of course, through this connector, the system using a web services provided by Zabbix notifies of CMDBuild of any of the alert. Again, this we are working on this. It is a custom connector we are creating, and of course, just as the philosophy of a lot of the other connectors that we talked about today is that CMDBuild can retrieve much more information about the problem that otherwise couldn't be delivered by the Zabbix only. For example, again, the service level agreement or the services providers or all the other information you may need to know. So this was just a general overview of the connectors that we developed, why it is so important to connect CMDBuild with external systems, and also to show you that it could be even quite easy to create a connector, and you do not need to give up the tool you're using and switch to CMDBuild all the way and immediately, but you can also have both tools working together, and this is something actually we do recommend. So I would invite you to get in touch with us either through our social channels, through our emails, on our websites, which is of course cmdbuild.com. So I thank you very much for participating to this webinar. It's always nice to see that so many of you are interested in our webinars. Thank you very much once again, and I invite you to rewatch the webinar that will be uploaded on YouTube in case you forget or arrived a bit too late. I thank you very much once again, and I say ciao ciao.